Welcome to the Vendador Table. Today we're going to be making a mushroom pasta that's been spiked with a porcini powder on the inside, and then we're also going to be roasting some hedgehog mushrooms and then featuring these beautiful, beautiful black truffles that we've just been getting in for the season. Let's dive in. So we're gonna make our pasta, which is obviously a mushroom pasta, and the way that we get the mushroom flavor in there is by getting actual dried mushrooms, blending them into a powder and folding it into the actual pasta dough itself. You really don't need a ton. This is porcini, they're just so pungent and so aromatic. So let's snap this on. Check on the progress. They are blitzed to death. So that's what you end up coming up with. So this is like liquid gold, absolutely delicious. Make sure you keep this in an airtight container and you can use it for as long as you'd like. And then we're gonna get going on the actual pasta dough itself. In this little bowl here, I've got my 00 flour, which is a extremely finely ground flour. It doesn't have the craziest amount of starch or gluten kind of formation in it, so we're just gonna also use some semolina flour. It's not as finely ground, it's a little bit more coarse, and it really gives it this awesome toothsome texture. A little bit of salt, and then we're going to add in our mushroom powder. I quite like mine to be very mushroom forward, and so I use a fair amount in mine. Give this a little bit of a mix. From there, just put it down on my surface. And then using the back of this, I'm just gonna make a little well right in the center. This is where my eggs are gonna go. So I've got 3 whole eggs here. I'm gonna break these egg yolks, and I'm just gonna get the entire egg beaten. And this part right here is actually super important. What we're gonna do is bring in a little bit of flour at a time to the center, and don't add too much at a time because it won't really hydrate the dough as well as it could. So basically add in little by little, until you start to build this paste almost in the center, until you can finally start to move to your bench scraper. And from there, you can kind of chop it until it all comes together and then work it into its final product. And start to fold it into itself. I'm gonna move on to my hands now. I'm just gonna start building the ball and try to make it homogeneous. It's definitely very good to try to get all of these little bits and pieces in right now, because otherwise, the more homogeneous it becomes, the harder it'll be to kind of get these things back in there. So I stop every once in a while, scrape the bench, place these right in the center, and fold over itself. So now it's just starting to take shape here. And basically what I want to do is I want to push it here, and then with this hand rotate it to the side so that I get this point back in. Now folding it over itself over and over again, always to the center of it so I can get it in a tight, nice little ball. And so now I'm just going to wrap it in a little bit of a plastic film. At the very least, you need this in the fridge for about an hour. It needs to rest now. We just worked it really hard, and so it's very pliable, but it also just really needs to rest. Next, we're gonna be working on our broth. I'm just gonna start off with a little bit of oil and just get a little film of it on there. And I'm just going to basically sear this onion. You can leave the skins on and everything. It tastes like onions. Let it taste like onions. I'm gonna crush the garlic ever slightly and get that going as well. What I'm also gonna be using are the same porcini mushrooms that went into our actual pasta. So set some of these aside. And then we're also gonna be using this kombu. A little bit of this really goes a very long way. It's very intense in flavor, but it's so delicious and so umami. I think between, you know, the actual porcinis themselves and the kombu, it brings in this kind of like meatiness kind of component to the actual dish. In the exact same pan, you can just turn it off for a second, but you can just add your water directly to the same pan. Okay, so in there, I'm gonna go in with my kombu. these beautiful dried porcini, a little bit of parsley. I've got some thyme and some rosemary. And to that, I'm gonna add maybe about 6 black peppercorns, a really nice pinch of fennel seeds. I absolutely love fennel seeds. And of course, I'm gonna add in a few bay leaves. Okay, so now it's coming up to a boil. It'll be there any second. This next step is optional. Here I've got some bonito flakes, which is basically a dried and smoked bonito fish. I think they're absolutely delicious. If you want to keep this vegetarian, you can feel free to not add these in, but I do think that they add an amazing kind of smoky component to it, and it really brings out that kind of rich umami flavor. So it's come up to a boil. We're just gonna make sure that this is submerged, and then we're just gonna let it go at a very low simmer for about an hour, hour and 15 minutes. We'll check back in on it shortly. Okay, next we're gonna get started on our mushroom duxelle. So we have these beautiful hedgehog mushrooms that we're getting from our friends over at Regalis. The beautiful caps I'm gonna actually leave as like our presentation side of things. Set these to the side. These guys, they can either go into the dehydrator and they can be used to turn into that powder, or they can be used for something like this, which is the duxelle. So I'm just gonna chop this very fine. Now, how fine or how chunky you leave this is completely up to you. Personally, I like it fairly fine, really for a lot of reasons. I think it just incorporates into the sauce a little bit better. And additionally, I think it just has a better kind of mouthfeel, but there's absolutely nothing wrong if you leave this a lot chunkier. It's gonna feel more of a ragu of mushrooms as opposed to like a duxelle that's kind of a hidden component that really accentuates the mushroom flavor in the dish. One thing to kind of know about mushrooms and making duxelle in general is that when you're doing this, there's just a ton of water in mushrooms. So you're gonna have to hit them pretty hard initially. Some people don't do any fat to start off. I like a little bit of oil to kind of get things going, but essentially what you're looking to do is get all of the water out of these mushrooms so that it's just intensified, pure mushroom flavor. So a thin film of neutral oil, and then we'll go in with our duxelle. So initially I'm just gonna get that hard sear kind of going, and then I'm just gonna turn this down to really like a medium and just let it go little by little. In the meantime, I'm gonna move over to our shallot and our garlic. They're really starting to dry up and caramelize. Before I start sweating these things, I'm gonna add in a little bit of butter. So our mushrooms are basically frying in this butter now, really infusing the butter with all of that mushroom flavor. It's time to add in the rest of our aromats. So we've got shallot, we've got garlic going right in. So now we're just gonna sweat these guys in the butter for a couple of minutes. So as this cooks down, I'm just gonna go into picking some rosemary and a little bit of thyme that are gonna go in there. Go ahead and add in our rosemary and our thyme. This is when I would add any of our like spices. In this case, it's just gonna be tons of black pepper. I think it adds an awesome nuttiness. What this also means is that we're very close to kind of deglazing the pan and finishing the product. Once you add in something like black pepper that's been that finely grounded, only has really about a minute at this temperature before it starts to burn, right? So you don't have all that much time. So traditionally people would do something like wine, you know, either red or white, depending on, or vermouth or stock or whatever you wanted to use. I'll just be using some smoked shoyu. Something like this really kicks it up. So I think of it as like a bouillon. And you want to move quickly here. It's going to evaporate very fast. It's going to intensify very quickly. So we're all done with our duxelle. I'm just gonna put it into a cup container until we're ready to use it. Take everything out of this thing, okay? Take all the fats. They're infused with so much flavor. It'll make all the world of difference. I think that's how you say that. I wasn't born here. That's my excuse every time. Next, we're gonna go into roasting our hedgehog mushrooms. I really don't want to do all that much of these mushrooms at all. I want them to taste like mushrooms, and I want them to kind of be the centerpiece of this entire thing. The pieces that are really large, I'm just cutting in half. If they're a little bit smaller, just leaving them that way. At the end of the day, it's the same kind of principle of trying to get everything to be the same size so they cook at the same time. So to the pan, we're gonna add a knob of butter. The only thing that we're gonna dress these with is some salt and pepper, obviously this butter, and just a little bit of fresh parsley. So our butter looks great. We're gonna take these hedgehogs, take them right in there. So you can see all this water that's starting to evaporate from them. Same thing that happened within the duxelle. There's just so much water in mushrooms all the time. The less water there is in anything, the more intensified the actual flavor profile would be. We're pretty much done here. I'm gonna turn this off and let some of that butter go in there. I'm just gonna season it with a little bit of salt. And of course, freshly ground black pepper. Okay, so now that we've got this all chopped up, I'm gonna take the majority of it and set it aside so that we can use it to finish our dish later on. And then this guy, really nice amount of it. You can see like it's really quite a lot of parsley that's going into this thing, but personally, love parsley, huge fan. We'll put them in this little pot here because we're gonna be using them to plate during service. There we go. Okay, so at this point, our pasta dough has been resting for about an hour. So you can see that it's gotten a lot smoother and it's just a lot easier to work with. And I'm just gonna dust it a little bit with flour just so that it sticks to the workbench, but you really won't need much of it. So you wanna get this as thin as you can before putting it into the machine. If you have any experience using any of these KitchenAid machines, you'll know that basically if you put it in while it's too thick, it'll just get stuck. So I'm starting off at 1. I'm gonna go back into the 2. I'm going directly into 4. And then this is actually where I'm gonna stop and fold it over itself. This has a couple of different utilities to it. One, you'll get a product that's actually a lot more uniform, so you'll be able to get a better yield out of cutting it. And 2, it really kind of helps get that gluten formation back straight in line. So I'm starting back at 1, okay? I just want to keep this shape as much as possible. And now I'm just going through them one by one. Right now I'm at 5. So from here, I've got some of my semolina. Just gonna dust it over so they don't stick to one another. Fold it over itself. Touch more semolina. Fold it over itself again and again. I'm gonna put them side by side. Touch more semolina, and then I can just start cutting. And we've got our portion of pasta. And then I'm just gonna keep it in the fridge until I'm ready to start blanching it. Okay, so it's been about an hour and 15 minutes and our stock is ready. I wanted to reduce a little bit as well to kind of intensify that flavor. So I've got a pan here that's very hot. So as soon as this liquid hits it, it just starts to bubble up and kind of get that reduction process going a little bit faster. Okay, so this has been reducing and it's almost at the halfway point, so a lot more intense in the mushroom flavor. I'm just gonna go in with a cup of cream. So now that the cream is in, I'm gonna season it as it's coming up to temperature with a little bit more of that mushroom powder that we made earlier. I'm gonna add in some more black pepper. And I'm gonna add in a little bit more of this smoked shoyu as well. So now I'm gonna go in with my noodles. These are super fresh. So it's only gonna be in here for about a minute. And you can tell the water is really not even like boiling really hard. It's just salted and it's come up to kind of a scald. And so at this point, I'm just getting them in there to lightly blanch them to bring them to life. And then as soon as I pull them, they're gonna go directly into the sauce, and I wanna finish them in the actual sauce. So you can see that they basically started floating directly to the top, and I'm just gonna go ahead and directly throw them into our pasta sauce. I'm just gonna turn this down a little bit here and just start to agitate the pasta. This is also the perfect time to start adding the rest of your ingredients. So we have the mushroom duxelle that we made earlier. Gonna go in with a really nice heaping spoonful of that. So now you can start to see that it's really starting to soak up all of the sauce. And we're getting to be right at our end here. So I'm gonna go in and give it a little bit of a taste test and adjust the seasoning if needed. Whew, man, that is so good. So again, going in with fresh parsley. I've got a little bit of balsamic vinegar that I'm just gonna use just to finish it off. Get some of that acid in there to cut through all the richness. And then we're gonna go ahead and build our pasta here. There's many kind of schools of thoughts in terms of how you wanna plate it. I think I'm gonna go the ladle route this time around, bringing it to the center, and just dumping it right there. I don't want it to be a mound that's going up. I personally don't really enjoy the way that things look like that, so I'm still tilting it on its side, but I do want it to at least look a little bit uniform. From there, as I said, I really love my pasta to be very, very saucy, so make sure to reserve some of that here. We're just gonna go directly over the top. Come up with our hedgehog mushrooms. And then we're gonna finish it off with some Perigord Black Truffles. They're just amazing. They're so pungent and fragrant that you can smell them even from right here. So let's make it rain. You could really turn this into a much smaller portion if you want to do something that's, you know, individually plated for a fine dining menu. This is also great for, you know, a couple of people to share. It's obviously so rich and luxurious that I would do this size portion for, you know, somebody that was coming to a restaurant and was doing more shared plates. So absolutely delicious. You know, you can kind of control how big or how small you want to make it.